Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes to see if we can get some people to join. Go ahead and give it another minute. Okay, I see we got a couple of participants, so let's go ahead and get started. So welcome, everyone. I'm Dylan. I'm a solutions architect here at Decisions. So feel free throughout this session, if you have any questions, please put some in the chat. We'll start to go over them. If not, I'll go and do a couple quick demos. Okay, so first question, how to update an account from an account email from a workflow? Great question. So let me go into here, create a flow real quick. So you'll see there's a couple of steps under integration and then internal services. So this is where you can find a lot of different account steps. So within the account service, I believe there will be a change. Let's see. So where you could change passwords through a flow. Let's see, confirm. Let's see, I knew there it is there we go, set email address. So this one will take in an account ID and then you could provide it with the new email. Yeah, I can go ahead and test it. Let me see what kind of accounts I got here. Security accounts. Okay, I'll change this one to get the account ID real quick. Copy this. So test.com. See, changed email. Test.com. Let's see. Yep, step ran. Let's go to our folder. Yep, and it went ahead and changed it for us. Okay, are there any more questions around that? Anything else you'd like to see with updating accounts, or is that going to cover it? I will take that as it's covered. Okay, so does anyone else have any other questions, topics they want to cover? Feel free to put it in the chat or in the QA section. If not, I'll kind of go into a quick demo of a couple different things. One being data extensions. So a data extension is a way in Decisions to apply new attributes to a given object without modifying that specific structure. So for example, I have a quick one put together. If we have a car object, car is our core object, and a car has a car owner and a car has purchase details. Let's say this is data on two different tables, and we want to put it back onto the single car object. So when we're building a rule against the car object, we will be able to access attributes for car owner as well as purchase details. So just to kind of show what this looks like is we have a car with a model, make, and year. And if you were just to build a rule without data extensions against the car object, you would only ever be able to choose the core fields defined on that object. So with a data extension, you're able to apply different objects or different fields onto there that are accessible through the designer, through the rule designer, flow designer, wherever you're accessing that object from. So to set a data extension up, you would go to designers, into your system folder, then the designers, look up list and constants, and here's where you would go and add a data extension. So the two I put together are car owner extensions and car purchase extension. So what I did in here was you give this flow an input, which is your core object. So in this example, it's car. And what we want to do is by the car ID, get the owner and apply that car owner object to our car structure. So you would put whatever logic in here you would use, whether it's a fetch step, a database query. Sometimes you could be joining two fields. You could really do whatever logic you want to get your fields and your attributes. And then if you put them onto the output step, it will then extend that object for you. So you can see here, if we were to add a new condition, you would have car.carOwner, which is the table we just saw, and then the additional fields. So I see a quick question. Do these extension flows only run when the data is required? Yes, so these will only ever run if you're pulling a field from the extension. So if we want to run rules just against the car object, so first name or last name, these extensions would never run, but that's a great point that I want to cover. These can impact performance later on. This definitely is a thing where it's kind of a niche scenario to use it, and you'd want to keep performance in mind. Because every time you access an attribute from a field on your data extension, it's going to run that workflow in the background. So let's say, for instance, if I'm running my rules against this to get the car owner from the car, this workflow will kick off every time I'm trying to use a field from the car owner object. And it's the same way. So if we have, let's say, 3 data extensions on a given object, and we're referencing fields from all 3, that's 3 workflows that kicked off in the background to get that data for you. So there will be a performance impact there. Now, every time you use a data extensions, it doesn't always have to be you pulling from another table or doing a database query or something. It could be as simple as you're taking your account object and you're giving it a first and last name and just doing a merge plain text. Now, as that is really just a simple workflow that runs, you got to take into account it is something additional running when you run that rule. So there always is that room to look for performance there and to enhance it. So that's definitely something to consider. So if I run this example I put together with the car, let me don't save this rule. Let's debug this flow. Let's see. Sometimes it does this for me. May refresh. So what this flow is doing is getting all of my car records, and for each, it's running that custom rule that's referencing data from these other 2 objects. Let's debug from here. So you can see that we pass out the data from the car, which is just our make, model, and year. But when the rule executes, we're running against the car owner's first name, the car make, and then the car purchase details state. So you can see here in the debugger that our 2 data extensions ran every time we went through that rule. So that's definitely something to keep into consideration, because now this kind of gives a visualization to how many times it actually runs. So are there any questions with data extensions, anything that you would want to see with them? Any questions on use cases? So let's see, wouldn't it be more performant in the case of 2 tables to use a SQL join? Exactly. Yep. So it would be more performant in that case to use a join. Honestly, that's probably the preferred method, but there's just some use cases where data extensions help. For example, if you have a lot of data that could potentially be called from an object, like let's say on one project I'm on, they have 13 related tables, but they only ever use data from one of those two related tables in their rules. So in their use case, it is more performant rather than join and get all of that data loaded up, just to use the data extensions and grab it when needed. So I did see there was one more thing going back to the account example. There was a error message about calling that service. So there's probably a couple more ways you could do it if it wasn't for this service. One thing I would recommend is if it is throwing an error, maybe restart the server, as something could be going wrong in the back end. And if that still doesn't solve it, I would submit a support ticket specifically for that. But let's just explore if there's another way real quick. You could then, I believe, try this update account. And what you could do is, let's see, pass in your account object and do a change value on the email address field. Pass it into this step, and I believe it will update it for you. Same as kind of a save entities. I haven't tried that before, but we could run that real quick. Let me just get my account by ID again. Let's see, get by ID. Let's make sure we're grabbing the correct account here. Let's see, the email. Yep, change email at test.com. Let's now do a new data set. Let's do email. We're going to do test change test.com. Now let's go ahead and do a change value on this output. So we're going to change our account, which I didn't rename, so it's get by ID 1, then the email address. And let's pass it into this update account. I personally haven't used this step, so let's see if it works. So we take our account object. Let's see. Okay, so it says it updated. Let's go verify now. Yeah, so that's another approach. If you continue to get the same error on that, calling that method, that's another approach to take. So let's see the next question. What is the difference of this versus run flow in the rule itself to get the data? Would you be able to elaborate on that a little bit more? Let me go back to that example. So in the rule itself, using okay, I see, run flow. So probably in all reality, it's going to be, when building rules, it's going to be about the same, because it is going to kick the flow off in the background. The main difference here with data extensions is that the data will be accessible wherever you're using that car object. So whereas the rule, you could run the flow to get additional data, but if we look here at our car object, you'll see we can use those fields from the two tables on the data extension. Let's see the next question. So that update step was giving me the same error because it was in the same account service. Okay. So another workaround for that one. Let me go back to my lunch and learn that example I just put together. Since it is using the update account, let's just throw it into a save entity step. Okay, yeah, so if that service isn't working specifically, I would reach out, one, restart the server, see if it works then. If not, I would submit a support ticket to see, because something might be wrong with the internal services steps at that point. So those would be my next kind of two actions on it. Reset server, and if that doesn't work, I'd submit a support ticket to get someone to look into that with more detail. If none of the steps are working with under the account service. Okay. Is there anything else that people would like to see a quick demo of? Any questions? If not, I'll do one more quick example. So I want to go over conditional rule sets. So traditionally, or previously, there was only ever one type of rule set, which was just the standard rule set. A rule set is a way to, let me create one real quick. Create rule set. It's a way to set an input. It's a way to put a series of evaluations against a given piece of data. So against this account, we could put a series of rules in here to run against that account. We could put a series of workflows to run against that piece of data. It's a way to just put a bunch of evaluations basically against a given piece of data. So with rule sets, you have the ability to put flows, rule tables, truth tables, matrix rules. But what I want to specifically cover is here, and it's the rule set type of conditional. So what that means is you're able to set different conditions to trigger sets of logic within your rule set. So let's say within this rule set, you had, let's say 50 evaluation rules. And if the data meets a particular condition, you only want it to run 3 of those 50 rules. So with the conditional rule set, you will be able to set that. So let's create a rule that says the account equals billing. So it'll give you a rule that you could set to perform this evaluation. So the account that we set as our input, we just find first name. Oh, let's just put email. Say contains. Let's go done. So I'll save this. And now you'll be able to see here that if we add evaluation rules within this section, it'll only ever apply if the condition is met. So if you have your rule set here and you have an evaluation rule, you just add that into here. This will now run for every account that runs. Every time you call the rule set, this rule will run. The next check would be to see if your condition's met. So if the email contains Dylan, now only this set of rules, or in this example, this one evaluation rule will run. It won't run for the other accounts where it doesn't contain Dylan. And I don't think there's a limit to how much you could set on these condition-wise. So you could set a couple of different conditions. So we could say, like, if it counts Dylan, run this set. If it counts Tim, run this set of rules. It's a way to really break down what is going on in the truth table, or in the rule set, sorry. So are there any questions on that from anybody? I know that was just a very quick example. Okay, so I don't see any questions. If there are no more questions, that's kind of all I had set up for today to go over. So I think we can call it here. So have a good weekend, everyone. Enjoy, have a good Friday at least, and then enjoy your weekend. Thanks.